Guys, just doing another little thoughts and impressions video on Battle for Azeroth. Now that we're sort of nearly 3 weeks in, raid drops this week coming, as well as Mythic Plus and some content, which is really going to be a good thing because at the moment it's just pretty much World of WorldQuest. There's not much content outside of that at all. It's getting pretty old. It's just mostly a WorldQuest rep grind. You have your island expeditions you need to do weekly. Dull as hell. I've probably some of the most boring content I think I've ever done in WoW. But you're sort of nearly forced to do it if you want to keep your neck going because it's such a large chunk of Azerite power for the week. Especially if you're not really grinding every single world quest out there, which who has the time and patience to do that? Only the people really dedicated. Certainly I don't have the time. Mostly after work and stuff when I get home, I'm doing world quests, but mostly just Champions of Azeroth stuff to get that up, and the emissary and anything that's quite easy to do on the way past. Don't really go out of my way to do too much of that. I assume a fair chunk of players probably are the same. We knocked over the mythics in 2 nights, so on Wednesday and Thursday. So since then, there's just outside of World Quest, there's just nothing really going on. So we I've been leveling my priest. I'm at 114 now. It gives me something else to do, at least until this raid drops. I'm not sure exactly how well our raid's going to go. Our GM has gone a little bit crazy and recruited 60 people for the expansion for the raid. So he's splitting it into 2 groups. I can see a lot of the trials getting pruned out quite quickly because you don't want 2 raid groups, because then you need to split your good people up, and then you have a bad experience, and you lose your good people because they want to raid in a decent raid team, not something that's half bad, half good. But either that or you split all your good people and all your bad people in the second raid. Doesn't do anything, and then they get all shitty. But as far as I know, they've tried to balance the group at the moment. But I think hopefully they're going to be quite strict with which trials pass and that, and hopefully prune us down to sort of more manageable 30-ish people for when we move forward into heroic and that sort of thing. That's hopefully the plan and the goal. I'm looking forward to Mythic Pluses. I really think after doing these dungeons on Mythics a lot, this is what we've sort of done most of them now 3 times on Mythic. I think they're really well designed for Mythic Plus. There's definitely some tuning that needs to be done, but that's pretty much the story of the whole expansion so far. There's just some stuff that's a little bit too easy on Mythic, and then there's just stuff that's wow, that's way overtuned. That's just going to be ridiculous when Mythic Plus hits. You might find some of those dungeons end up being a dead key, like was early in Legion, like Halls of Valor and stuff. When you sort of hit some of the higher levels, you're just nope, we'll just move on and level up someone else's key, and hopefully we get something better. I think I've already seen some hotfix nerfs to King's Rest, some of the trash there. The Berserkers, for example, they're stacking their debuff now only every 8 seconds instead of 4, which is good because the tanks just were getting super wrecked by that. And outside of CCing one, when there was 2 of them, but even with one, they were just on 2 stacks, they were running away, even on just normal mythics. But in general, the dungeons are super fun. I think I'm really looking forward to doing Mythic Pluses. I think they're going to be super enjoyable, really challenging. I'm not sure how the raid's going to go yet. It looks pretty fun. Hopefully it is fun. I think I'll be having more fun once our guild's raid teams sort of balance out a bit and we're just back to 1 raid team. I think that's looking like when we'll really be having fun and probably move into heroic, because I imagine normal will generally probably be pretty much of a cakewalk. But then again, were some occasional fights in Legion as well, where for our raid team, which was super casual in the last expansion, wasn't difficult, but they were a step up over some of the other fights, and we sort of had to. We're only running about a 14 or 15 man team, and we had to prune a few people out just to kill some of those because of some of the timers at those numbers were a bit tight. I assume that's not going to be much of a problem at 30 people though in this guild. So hopefully we prune that down, and once we get into heroic, we just have the best guys running that we have available in that raid team. Outside of that, there's not really much going on. Island invasions are just expeditions. Sorry, just super dull. I've done them like 3 times now, or like I've done all of them enough to finish the weekly quest 3 times, and I'm just hoping that my net gets to a point soon where it just doesn't need that the Azeroth power or artifact power or whatever they're calling it now, because it's just dull. The PvP stuff might make it a bit more exciting, but yeah, I don't know. I'm not a big PvPer, but also like it's still really PvE, because there's no point in continuously killing the other team over and over, because they're not worth a lot of Azeroth power until they've actually been alive for a long period of time. So generally it's going to be race early on, and then towards the end it's just going to be a big hectic PvP fight with either side trying to do that. So I really can't see it being even that much more exciting. It probably will be more exciting than against PvE opposite faction, but like yeah, well, I mean, see how it goes. I mean, there might be a big thing about working out strategy, like especially on heroic at the moment. Like you really want a tank and a healer. So you sort of run a tank healer and a DPS. You can sort of get away with a healer without a tank, but it gets a bit touch and go at times. There are some mobs that are a bit overtuned, and they just sort of wreck the DPS quite quickly. But I mean, with the PvP sort of stuff coming into that might actually change a lot of the sort of tactics and stuff about what you run in there. It might just be double DPS healer, or maybe even triple DPS. You just try and burn the mobs quick enough that it's not ends up being like a huge deal. Like you sort of don't need to worry about healing. Or that could also depend on what classes you're running too. Like my Demon Hunter, for example, in demonic spec, like it self heals a lot. Like I pretty much solo those expeditions on normal as my Demon Hunter. Heroic's a bit tough. Some of the rares with too many mobs, like that'll eventually chip him down without some heals or some DPS help. But those sort of things, they make it interesting. That like if you have the right specs, like Affliction Warlock, Demon Hunter, maybe something like a Ret Paladin or something that can heal themselves as well. A triple DPS might be interesting in PvP. Whether I actually get around to doing that, not really 100% sure yet. But yeah, so kind of dull. We'll see how they go. Outside of that, there just really isn't a lot going on at the moment. Finish up the war campaign. Super disappointed in that. It just seemed to another part of the expansion that needed polish. Like I know the Alliance side on the other islands, like on Xandala, I mean, most of it wasn't even voiced. Some of the quests were a little bit interesting. Most of them not particularly interesting. This felt like the expansion feels like it needed another 6 months on beta. I think 8.1 is really good where it's going to hit the stride. I think there's still some class I noticed today on MMO Champion and Wowhead as well. Like there was the patch notes, and there's just some huge changes made to feral druids already. Like massive number tweaks and stuff like that. And it's just like, how did they make it to live so broken? Like surely with the beta period they would have seen those numbers being low, but they didn't, and they're getting tuned now. But just everything's getting tuned, like Azeroth gear, just some of the traits. I didn't particularly go out of my way on my Demon Hunter to pick up 3 Unbound Chaos traits, but I did pick them up, and then all of a sudden, bam, like 53% nerf to the damage. Understandable, super broken, but like how did that stuff make it to live when it was already had to be nerfed by 50%? That's just ridiculous. Like, did no one on beta, like, or any of their testers, like, actually equip 3 Unbound Chaos traits and then just, like, foe rush something and go, wow, that hits a little bit hard? I mean, it was hitting, like, for 30k, critting for, like, 50. It was ridiculous. Like, I have no problem with it being nerfed, but I just don't understand how that stuff made it to live. Also, like, just the reputations are just they're just never ending, this expansion. It's just, and in the end they kind of make them mostly worthless. By the time I was at Revered, where I can pick up the 835 gear, already worse than most of the gear I've got, plus it had bad stats on it. I imagine it's going to be pretty much the same when I hit Exalted. The Champions of Azeroth head, it's a 355, I've got a 340. That may make a difference, but it does have a really average trait on it, so that's sort of, or average traits in general. So whether the extra 15 eye levels and the extra, I think it's like 61 agility makes the difference between those traits or not, it's hard to tell. Like, I'll have to probably do some simming and stuff before I end up buying it to check it out. But like, yeah, just, I mean, I understand some of that reputation stuff is aimed at people who aren't running mythics already and aren't going to raid and that sort of thing, but it just feels like you're just making people do dull content over and over and over just to get some loot. Like, maybe for something exciting to get that reputation, but like, the world quests are just dull. Like, most of them are just repeats of like quests from when you were leveling, and those leveling quests weren't fun then. I mostly run around and just generally do the ones where I need to kill one sort of elite guy, because most of the other ones are so tedious and dull. You need to collect 10 of these, but you need to kill like 40 mobs for those 10 things to drop, and it's just not fun. A lot of the world quest content at the moment, I don't find fun. It really is a shame. Like, the campaigns and stuff were generally pretty fun, like an interesting story. I haven't played the Horde side yet. That's after I dig my Priest, and the Warrior, my Horde Warrior, will definitely be the third turn that I eventually level to 120. But the Alliance side, with the whole Janus thing, and the Drustvar with the whole witches and the Order of Embers and stuff being reforged to fight the Drust and try and stop the Coven of Witches and that sort of thing. Interesting. Just the quest design around it was just not fun. It felt like some of those quests were filler that they were going to replace later on. Never got to it because, hey, announcement date getting released there. But yeah, just, I don't know. Maybe while I've been away, I've played so many interesting games with, like, quests that aren't so dull. The interesting quest design. Take example, Witcher 3. Love the game. Probably my favourite game ever. Plenty of quests in there that, go kill some stuff, sure. But then there's some quests that you can solve without, like, ever fighting. Maybe the World of Warcraft engine just can't support some of those quests, but, it might be really interesting if, they can look at other sort of games, and even not just MMOs, other types of games, and look at some interesting quest design. Obviously, they have to build like millions of quests for an MMO, so it's not everything's going to be that exciting. But sort of something more than, hey, kill this stuff. Something more than pick up this stuff off the ground. Something more than, oh, you're in this area, you need to reach this bar to 100%, which involves killing and picking stuff off the ground. That would make the world much more interesting. And they're always like, oh, we need to make the world more dangerous, so we're going to have you get dazed easier, and we're going to have the mob scaling and stuff. But if you put interesting content in there, that's going to make people want to be in the world more than, oh, look, I need to do this repetitive thing over and over and over, to gain this reputation. Even though I've just like pretty much united Kulturas, saved Jaina, had Kulturas rejoin the Alliance, all the stuff I've done for people. It's like, oh, you're not really high enough reputation for us yet. You should go and, pick up some stuff off the ground and do it lots and lots, so we actually like you more. Like, just, old Blizzard plays the lore card whenever they feel like playing the lore card, and sometimes they like to play it when it suits them, and then when it doesn't, they just sort of, oh, yeah, we'll pretend that never happened. But yeah, that's generally my general thoughts so far. I'm really looking forward to the content that's coming. Just current content, like, it's just the fun stuff, which is the dungeons, like the mythic dungeons at the moment. They just over so quickly for the weekend. Heroics are just you don't really need them anymore, and the randoms have kind of been, they've nerfed the rewards for the randoms, so you don't sort of go in there, and then and plus, like, people that would normally run them for like their reward and stuff, there's no incentive for them to go in there to try and reduce the queue times, and so when you do get in there, you just get a whole bunch of people that like slow it down and are bad and that sort of thing. So it makes them less fun to run as well. So, but thanks for listening to me waffle on for 15 minutes, probably repeating myself a few times, and probably the same sort of things I said in the last video. But that's just it. Like, there just hasn't been that much content now that I'm sort of like revered with all the factions, but Tortallin, which is on its way, it's getting close there. There just really isn't an incentive to do much of the stuff. That's why I'm leveling my priest, which I suppose in a way is a good thing, but I would just prefer the content that I did have to do would be like much more fun and engaging and exciting. It just, I don't know, maybe that's just what MMOs are these days, and maybe I've grown past them, but I'm sure I'll enjoy it once the Mythic Pluses and the raid comes and we get the more challenging content, and hopefully 8.1 sorts stuff out. I know my priest, like, I plan really leveling it to heal, but it really could, it definitely could do with some tuning. I feel with leveling, like Void Form, fantastic when I'm in there, mobs just blow up, but I feel like as Disc outside of Void Form, when I'm outside of Void Form, I do less damage than as Disc as a Shadow Priest. So, and plus Shadow, it takes damage a lot, whereas Disc just heals itself through its damage, and seems more consistent. So, there's not really something stand up for, Shadow showing its strengths. But, I guess 8.1 is the big tuning pass for Shadow. But yeah, I mean, like, especially for the problem with Void Form, like for Shadow, is like outside of big long fights where you can get in and out a lot. Like when you're leveling, you might only get enough power to like do it every third mob, and then the mob's half dead before you get enough power before you can switch in there. And it's like, well, there's no point in popping it now, because then you're wasting it before you get to the next mob. So it just feels like a never-ending cycle of in there for a short time and then out of it for a long time, and that's not that fun. So hopefully they figure something out. Whether Shadow in general just needs to scrap Void Form and go back to the drawing board, I'm not sure. It is pretty fun, but at the moment they just can't seem to balance it, and that's the problem. And if the problem is that they buff the damage outside of Void Form and nerf Void Form itself down, so the damage is a bit more balanced between them, then what's the point of Void Form at that point? So yeah, anyway, we'll finish up here. I've had enough of a whinge, and don't take this the wrong way. I am looking forward to the content. It's just at the moment stuff's pretty dull. So thanks for listening, and I'll catch you next time. And after we finish probably some raid and some Mythic Pluses, I'll probably be streaming some of those. So check them out on my Twitch channel, or they'll be posted here once I'm done. Thanks a lot, and have a good one.